You did? Go, nigga. Hold on. This is my good.
Oh, my.
Go.
We can discuss what's going on.
I don't want to talk.
You don't want to talk?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That right there is Crazy Boy Bray in an interrogation room, refusing to say a word to detectives while his own father was lying dead outside with a bullet in his head. The police already knew who ordered that hit. What they could not believe was that he made the call from inside a jail cell. To really understand how a son ends up ordering the killing of his own father, you have to start at the beginning, because this story did not start with a gunshot. It started years before that, in a broken home in Fort Worth, Texas, with a little boy growing up fast in a world that was not going to slow down for him. Brilan Brown was born around 2001 in Fort Worth, and from the start, life was not easy for him. He was the youngest of 6 children, and the person he was closest to in the whole world was his older brother Kevin Brown Jr., who everybody in the neighborhood called Little Kevin. That brother meant everything to Brilan. He was the big homie, the example, the one Brilan looked up to. Then in January of 2016, little Kevin was shot and killed during a robbery, and that loss hit Brilan in a way that never fully healed. He carried that pain with him everywhere he went after that. Growing up, Brilan lived with his father, Kevin Brown Sr., who people called Big Kevin, and even back then, the relationship between them was complicated. Big Kevin did not have a regular job, and according to what came out in court, he had his young son helping him switch out the ID numbers on stolen cars to make them look legal. So Brilan was being pulled into criminal activity before he even had a real chance to choose a different path. By the time he was 15, he had already been sent to the Texas Juvenile Justice Department for breaking into a car and for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. And that was really just the beginning of a long criminal record that kept growing. What happened inside that juvenile facility matters a lot to this story, because that is exactly where Brilan met a young man named Damon Cotton for the first time. Remember that name, because Cotton is going to come back in a major way later on. But while Brilan was locked up, he also started rapping. He recorded his first song while he was in detention, and it got around 100,000 views, which was enough to get him a manager and give him something to build on when he got out. Once he was free and back on the streets of Fort Worth, Brilan started building a real following in the local rap scene. His music was up on Apple Music, Spotify, and SoundCloud, and songs like No Flexin', Got a Question, and especially his remix of You Feel Me with the late MO3 were getting real attention across the Dallas-Fort Worth area. That MO3 remix alone pulled in about 9 million views, which is not a small number for an underground artist. His music had that raw energy that comes from actually living the life he was rapping about: street loyalty, loss, survival. But outside of the music, things kept getting worse. By 2019, Brilan was officially documented by police as a member of the Rolling 60 Crips, one of 38 different Crip sets that were active in Fort Worth at the time. He had also helped start a crew called Brothers Over Everything out in the Lake Worth area. He was beefing with rival rappers, making threats on social media, and by early 2020, he had already been connected to the deaths of 2 innocent people who were not even his intended targets. The first case was a 33-year-old mother named Anjanae Eubanks and a 17-year-old student named Cheyenne Moore, both of whom were caught in the crossfire during a situation where Brilan and his crew were actually hunting a rival rapper known as Channel 5 JWAB. When J-Wob ended up dead later on, Brilan dropped a diss track making fun of his death.
Crazy Boy was around as when Mo3 died.
Yeah, he had the hit song that was actually going up as, you know, Mo3 passed.
He ain't had no chance in life.
So that is who Brilan Brown was by the time everything fell apart. A young rapper with genuine talent and a very real criminal history, still carrying the grief from losing his brother years earlier, and now sitting inside Tarrant County Jail on unrelated murder charges going into 2022. And it's while he's locked up in that jail that he finds out exactly what his father has been doing behind the family's back, and the whole thing goes to a completely different level. The woman at the center of all of this was not Brilan's girlfriend. Her name was Rebecca Shea Willis, and she had been the girlfriend of Brilan's dead brother, Little Kevin. Little Kevin and Shea had a child together before he was killed, which made that child Brilan's nephew and also Big Kevin's grandson at the same time. After Little Kevin was killed, Shea stayed connected to the Brown family. Then, starting in October of 2017, she secretly started a relationship with Big Kevin himself, the father of the man she had just lost and the grandfather of her own child. That relationship produced another baby, a daughter, which meant that little girl was Big Kevin's child and also a half-sibling to Little Kevin's son, who was already Big Kevin's grandson. The family connections had become so twisted that they were hard to even explain out loud. And by the time of the murder, Shea Willis was living in that same house with Big Kevin, along with both of her children and one of Brilan's sisters. When Brilan found out about all of this from inside the Tarrant jail, he was furious. According to testimony from his former girlfriend, Alexis Abiata, Brilan described his father as grimy, which in street language means someone who's sneaky and disloyal in the worst possible way. To Brilan, this was not just his father having a secret relationship. This was his father going behind the whole family's back with the woman who had a child with his dead brother. In his mind, Big Kevin had disrespected Little Kevin's memory in the most personal way possible. And where Brilan came from, that was the kind of thing that had consequences. So from inside Tarrant County Jail, using a jail-issued tablet and phone, Brilan started putting together a plan to have his father killed. He knew the phones were monitored, so he used coded words throughout his messages. Guns became controllers, bullets became pieces, and the whole murder plan was just the play. He reached out through a woman named Kaylin Harris to reconnect with Damon Cotton, the same person he had met in juvenile detention years before, who was now 19 years old and still running with the Rolling 60 Crips. Cotton would be the one doing the shooting. Cotton's girlfriend, Ashlyn Durham, would drive the car, and Alexis Abiata, his ex-girlfriend, would handle the other details, including buying the ammunition and making the key phone call that would lure Big Kevin outside. The planning went on for weeks. Investigators eventually recovered more than 75,000 messages from Brilan's jail communications, and those messages laid out the entire plan in detail. On January 20th, 2022, Brilan was messaging about getting the weapons sorted. On January 23rd, Abiata was sent to buy bullets at a sporting goods store called Academy Sports, deliver them to Cotton, and get the money back from Brilan's people. The day before the murder, gas money was sent through Cash App to Durham so she could fuel the car they were going to use. On the afternoon of January 25th, 2022, around 5:53, Abiata set up a three-way phone call connecting Brilan, herself, and Big Kevin. On that call, Brilan told his father there was jewelry, chains, grills, waiting for him at the mailbox outside. he told Big Kevin to go check for a package. Big Kevin, 47 years old, a father of 6 with no gang involvement at all, walked out his front door and headed toward the mailbox because his son told him to. At that exact moment, Cotton and Durham were parked on the street in a black Chrysler 200, waiting. Surveillance cameras from nearby houses captured them sitting there for 11 to 12 minutes before Big Kevin stepped outside. The moment he reached that mailbox, Cotton leaned out from the back seat and opened fire with a rifle that had a homemade device attached to it to catch the shell casings so they wouldn't fall on the ground as evidence. The bullet hit Big Kevin in the head, causing him to collapse right there on the pavement. Shay Willis was in the area and ran to him. When police arrived, body camera footage caught her telling officers that Big Kevin was her father, a lie she told on the spot to hide the nature of their relationship. Big Kevin's own mother, Deborah Ingram, was also at the scene, and she reportedly told police almost immediately that she believed the shooting was connected to her grandson, Brilan. The getaway car had a bent fender and a flat tire, which made it easy to track on city cameras and license plate readers. Durham was arrested shortly after and gave a full confession, explaining the whole plan, including the fact that Cotton had been promised somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000 for carrying out the shooting. When police searched Cotton's apartment, they found a rifle, ammunition that matched what was used at the scene, and handwritten letters to Brilan that showed the two men had a close personal connection. After the shooting, Brilan sent a message from jail that said, "My daddy just got shot in the head." He already knew exactly what had happened because he was the one who made it happen. Once investigators started pulling everything together, the case against Brilan came into focus fast. Detectives built a timeline using those 75,000 plus messages from the jail tablet, phone records, Cash App transfer records, and surveillance footage from multiple cameras in the neighborhood. All of it pointed in the same direction. Fort Worth police detective Michael Sones put together a presentation of 128 pieces of evidence covering the full timeline from when the planning started to when the shooting happened. The case was thorough. In October of 2022, Brilan was formally charged with murder. Alexis Abida and Ashlyn Durham were also charged, but both of them agreed to cooperate with prosecutors, which meant they would testify against Brilan in exchange for the possibility of lighter treatment in their own cases. DeMond Cotton was charged separately. Brilan's trial started in Tarrant County's 396th District Court before Judge George Gallagher in November of 2023 and ran for 8 days. Prosecutors built their case under what Texas calls the law of parties, which means that even though Brilan did not pull the trigger himself, he could still be convicted of murder because he was the one who planned it, paid for it, and directed every step of it. Under that law, he was just as guilty as the person who actually fired the gun. The evidence the jury heard was heavy. Abida took the stand and testified about Brilan calling his father grimy and connecting it directly to the relationship with Shay Willis and the baby. Durham testified about her role as the driver and the payment that was promised. The detective walked through the full digital trail, the messages, the Cash App transfers, the phone logs, all of it. The prosecution also brought in a police gang unit officer named Christopher McAnulty who testified about Brilan's documented membership in the Rolling 60 Crips, backed up by his tattoos, social media posts, and known associates. Prosecutors even brought in Brilan's own rap lyrics as evidence. Songs like Criticizing contained lines that referenced his father's death and the reasons behind it, including the line, "R.I.P. KB, my father, for doing what he did." The defense had tried to argue that Brilan had no motive, which the judge said opened the door for prosecutors to use the music to show exactly what was on his mind. Brilan got on the stand during the punishment part of the trial and denied everything. He said he had nothing to do with his father's death, told the jury he had given his life to God while he was locked up, and turned down a 50-year plea deal that at least would have left open some possibility of eventually getting out one day. He said no to that deal and let the jury decide. The jury came back with a life sentence and no chance of parole, and Brilan was classified as a repeat offender because of everything else in his history. He was about 22 years old when they read that verdict. DeMont Cotton went to trial separately in March of 2024 and received 65 years, with parole possible after he serves half of that. Abita and Durham, who both cooperated, still had cases pending as of early 2026, with their help to the prosecution expected to affect the outcome. Brilan appealed his conviction in 2023, and the Texas Second Court of Appeals upheld the verdict in full on July 3, 2025. No changes. Life in prison, and the door is closed. Now, what happened to Brilan is extreme, but the bigger picture it fits into is one that keeps showing up in rap culture, and it is worth talking about. There is a pattern of young men who grow up in violent environments, start building something real through music, and then make decisions that take everything from them before they ever get a real shot. Think about what happened with YNW Melly, the rapper from Florida who was charged in 2019 with killing two of his closest friends, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas Jr. The prosecution said Melly staged their deaths to look like a drive-by and then went on social media acting like he was grieving. That case went through years of court delays and a mistrial, but the core of it is the same thing you see in Brilan's situation. A young rapper from a difficult background with real songs that were taking off, who crossed a line that no amount of talent could walk back. Both of them were in their early 20s when it all collapsed. Both were looking at the real possibility of spending the rest of their lives locked up.
Man, I think about how many young niggas, 18, 19 years old, that's facing life, and they with some real demons.
What makes Brilan's story hit different, though, is that his victim was his own blood. Big Kevin was not a rival. He was not somebody from the streets who had come for Brilan. He was a 47-year-old man and a father of 6 who had no gang ties whatsoever. And he died because he trusted a phone call from his own son telling him to go check the mailbox. That's what this came down to. The Brown family is the one that has to carry this now. Big Kevin's mother lost her son because of something her own grandson did. Brilan's sister LaWanda found out about the affair only after the murder, when she went through Big Kevin's phone and found the Facebook messages between him and Shay, then had to confront Shay directly with what she found. Shay Willis is out here raising 2 children who are connected to each other and to this family in ways that are almost impossible to explain cleanly. The Browns did not just lose a man on January 25, 2022. They lost any version of a future where any of this could be put right.
Some people forget where God delivered them from. Just broke. And you sit there and got some money and then you turn it to the devil. These young is ready to be demons.
Man.
I'm a demon. Nigga, you ain't never seen no demon.
Brilan Brown is serving a life sentence in a Texas prison right now. His music is still sitting on Spotify and Apple Music, still getting streams from people who found him through this story. His appeal is finished. There are no more legal options on the table as of 2026. He was barely in his 20s when the rest of his life was decided for him by the choice he made himself. Fort Worth keeps moving, but Crazy Boy Bray is not going anywhere. If you made it this far, you already know this story is one of the craziest things to come out of Fort Worth in a long time, and there are plenty more stories just like it that most people have never heard. If you want to see them, click on one of the cards on your screen so you don't miss the next one, and drop a comment below telling us what you think about this whole situation. Did Brilan bring this on himself, or did his father light the fuse? Let us know where you stand.